I enjoyed doing this, and I'm glad that you all voted for me to do this again. So with that, and I also, as the chair's responsibility, I have to have a vice chair, and I've asked Mr. Myers if he would continue to do that. And Mr. Myers, would you accept that position?
Yes, I would, with honor.
Well, thank you. Now, today's agenda is just looking at items in the agenda, and as we have a new council members on this and we're starting a new term here, I thought it would be good if we went down through here and just see what we have, and if there's items that we want to go ahead and take off, and we'll see the priority of how we want to set our agenda for this coming year. And I felt like the best way to do is just go through each one of them, and we'll go down one by one. If anybody wants to make a motion to remove, then we will do that, and this way we can set our agenda for this next term. The first issue is the dog tethering and chaining, and that is referred by Councilmember Beard. And right now, a subcommittee has been formed, and they're supposed to be reporting back to us in February, March. We asked for 60 days, and Mr. Beard, could you kind of give us an update where we stand on that, if you don't mind, please?
Well, we're trying to get everybody together. We had a pretty large group of people that signed up that were interested in being involved in this. We may need to pare that down somewhat to make it a bit workable, because it's stacked somewhat in one organization's favor. And we hopefully will be able to report out something, but probably nothing finally in February. But we would like to go ahead and try to shoot for March for some definitive.
Sounds good. And that's one reason why I think we want to keep in the subcommittee, because it's along with you, Dr. Blues, and Ms. Crosby are the committee members, and then we can have other people come and participate, so we get a good full input. The next item is the sign ordinance, and I think it looks like we are going to be having that on the agenda in the spring of 2009. And unfortunately, Mr. Schoniger is not here because I think he is on vacation. Is that correct?
His sister.
Oh, I'm sorry. His sister's ill. Okay, so that's why he wasn't able to attend today, but that we have set for spring of '09. The next issue is the man-o-war truck traffic restrictions that Dr. Stevens put in, and we're waiting for the police to come back with a report in February for that. Mr. Beard, the multi-way stop at Glendover at Valley Road.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
If a former council member had put something on the committee items, do you think we should transfer that to a new or current council member?
That would be fine with me. We've kept them at other times one way or the other, but I think it's better if we do it with the ones that are presently on there, and that way they can then spearhead that issue through, and that'd be my preference. Yes, sir.
Well,
Mr. Myers.
I would be more than happy to take the sign ordinance, because I actually was trying to put that in the committee at the same time that Mr. Camp was, so I'd be more than happy to.
Okay, we'll just put your name then beside that, if that's okay with the committee.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have something, Mr. McCord? Okay. Mr. Beard, the multi-way stop at Glendover at Valley Road. Do you know what is going on presently with that?
It's my understanding that the process with the traffic engineering is going forward, but I don't know where exactly they are at this point.
Okay, we'll follow up with them and see where we are.
Christmas break is kind of thrown everybody for a loop.
We'll check with traffic engineering, get back and put that in here. What I'd like to do is continue when we do these items and have the status, so we can be a little more specific of where we stand, so we have kind of a progression on where we're headed. The next item is the virtual fake speed humps that I put in, and we're waiting on traffic engineering. That should be here in February or March on that one. The Zandale stormwater ditch, I think that one's just staying in committee. Mr. Beard, you?
Yes, it is. There has been some activity as associated with the Zandale Neighborhood Association to help in somewhat the beautification of that monster that they live with over there. But you know, there's going to be no final complete answer to that. I think the last time we checked, it was a $5.4 million project to bury or cover that ditch, and that's just not in the cards right now. Okay,
we'll just keep that one in committee. The traffic safety, the streets adjacent to Christ the King Church that Dr. Stevens put in. Ms. Feigl, would you like to? Okay, we'll put your name down there. The vicious dogs that Mr. Maloney had put back in. We looked at that directly. We didn't make any changes in the committee because of the way that the state statute was, but do we want to remove that, or do we want to, I mean, it has some bearing on the dog tethering and chaining, because one of the things caused from that is vicious dogs. Is there, what would the committee like to do with this one?
I would just make a motion to remove that one because I feel like we've studied it enough that based upon Kentucky law, we're doing what we can.
Right.
And the tethering should address some of those issues.
Okay, you want to make a motion to remove?
I want to make a motion to remove.
We have motion to remove. Second, Mr. Myers?
On discussion on that, I would prefer that we keep that in committee because the issue keeps coming back. The citizens keep bringing the issue back, and we've had police officers attacked by vicious dogs as well as citizens. I think what we need to do is find a way to apply some pressure to the state legislature to see if we can't get some enabling legislation to let us make a move here in our own jurisdiction. So if we take this out of committee, I think it gets lost, and then we just don't have any movement, but we have continued citizen complaints and concerns about it. So I would like to keep it in.
Okay.
But then maybe, I'm not sure what the next step would be to engage. I know we've already got our lobbyist engaging the state legislature on this issue. I'm not sure what our committee can do, what would be the best next step as far as the committee goes, but I think that we should leave it in here and look at doing that.
Mr. Beard?
That was going to be my question, whether Ned is the one to carry the ball for us, but of course we got them
Well, we
coming
could
into
make a
session
recommendation from the
tomorrow.
committee
Yeah.
that Mr. Sheehy, on our behalf, would look at this as an issue in the state government and what's going on with the legislature.
So can I suggest that we just bring him forward at maybe the next meeting, because it won't take long, and just have some conversation with him on his update where he's at?
We could do that, and if
Maybe
we want to
bring a motion
remove
out
it
here
next
to the full
time, we
council.
could do that at the next committee meeting. We could bring him forward, have him tell him what we'd like him to look at, address, and then we could maybe, if we want to remove it at that point, then we
Well, I
could
think
do.
at that,
I'll withdraw the motion.
Okay.
thank you. Maybe at that point, we could have a motion come out of here to the full council to do a resolution to the legislature as well.
That would be fine. We'll leave it in then.
Thank you.
The next one was alcohol sales impact. There was a task force supposed to be formed, never was formed. I haven't seen a great demand for this. At this point, I would just make a motion that we remove this. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, that's been removed. The next one is the news rack ordinance that Mr. DeCamp put in. The self-policing policies are in effect. Mr. McCord?
And I was on that committee, so I'll go ahead and take that over, and if you want to put my name on that. We're going to leave that in committee, and what we've done is met with all the private companies that are self-policing, and they've done a very good job to this point, and we've come to an agreement that as they go, we'll be monitoring that, and we want to leave it there just in case it ends up being a situation where that doesn't work. We want to be able to pull that back off and go and change that ordinance. But as it stands right now, we can leave it in committee while the self-policing goes on, and we are monitoring that.
Okay, we'll do that. The next issue is dispatching intercity buses from terminals. Mr. Maloney put this back in March of '07. Does anybody want to comment? Is this one we want to keep in, or is this something we'd like to remove?
I would move to remove it.
Okay, we
guess
have a motion and a second to remove. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Beard?
Sorry. Are we talking about the bus or buses that end up on Alexandria Drive daily? Is that, I mean, is that a problem or is that not a problem? I keep on hearing from the public that it's a problem.
I actually haven't even seen those buses.
Has Dr. Duncan quit
recently.
sending you emails?
Yeah, he did.
Is there any other discussion? All those in favor of removing?
I guess, I would just move to remove it, and then
If you want to bring it forward again, if
we
there's an
can
issue that we
bring
need
it
to
forward
address.
again, but I know from talking to former council member Maloney, when it was investigated, it was like if you started an ordinance or whatever, the current ordinances or laws protect like the tour buses and things like that, so then it would fall into that, and it could be a problem. So we could check into it again at a later date.
We have a motion to remove and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? We'll remove that, and if it needs to be brought up, then we'll have you bring it up if you would, Ms. Ensign. Okay. The next issue is the door-to-door peddlers that Mr. Stinnett put in back in February of '07. Would somebody else like to bring this one up? Is there? We don't really have a status on this, and I'm not sure where this one is at this point.
Just leave it in until we can talk to Councilmember Stinnett.
I will follow up with Councilmember Stinnett and see where we stand with that. Mr. Lane?
Next item.
Okay, the next item, imposing fines for right-of-way signage. Mr. Maloney put in '06.
I was going to recommend we take that off because my experience in all over town, the signs pretty much disappeared, mainly because of better enforcement as versus fines. So I don't see that we need to get into that.
We have a motion to remove in a second. I think Mr. Beard and
I disagree.
Mr. Myers. Mr. Myers?
I disagree. I'd like to keep this in and work on this issue. I've had some meetings with the county attorney, and they have done some things to step up enforcement, but I don't think we're done yet, and so I'd like to leave this in.
Well, we'll vote on it, and if it does get voted to remove, then I'll have you then bring it back up again and put it back in the committee possibly is what we could do, since it was Mr. Maloney back in '06. So we'll go ahead and vote, and we'll depend on what happens. If you want to bring it back up, then we can put it back in committee, I think.
Okay. Just for information, though, the reason that I haven't done anything with it, I didn't put it in the committee because it's already here, but we've already had meetings with the county attorney and some other folks. We've had code enforcement and building inspection all in those meetings. So I've been working the issue based on it being in here under somebody else's name.
If it doesn't get removed, we'll put your name then as the front person on this. Mr. Beard, I think you had a question?
Well, just what I have observed, even quite recently, Southland Drive, for instance, is packed with signs in the right-of-way. Nicholasville Road is packed with signs in the right-of-way. I think one thing that it's a shame, it's a bit difficult to for a merchant, for instance, to know exactly where the right-of-way is in some of those cases. But in fact, that's one of these merchants right now.
There's about Southland Drive calling.
You know, it's still out there as a problem, in my opinion, and you know, I'd like to see it stay for a while. I think we need to be somewhat consistent citywide about how it's enforced. But it's a mess right now, and you know, just as soon as somebody does something in one address, somebody goes out ahead of them and does something in another address on the same street, and it just proliferates, kind of like a cancer. And we need to fix it once and for all. We're all in tune to it when we go through our election process.
Sure.
But, you know, the merchants think they own everything all the way to the middle of the road, and they just want to.
Mr. Lane, I think Mr. Lane would have called. I got you. They're calling.
I'll kill this in a second.
The merchants are calling. I think what I'd like to do, based on the comments from other council members, is to make to revise or make a friendly amendment to my motion and to leave it on the
just with
agenda
withdrawal.
and assign it to Mr. Myers.
That's fine. We can just do that. Just withdraw it, and we'll put Mr. Myers as the person.
Thank you, Mr. Lane.
Okay. The Citizens Advocate Standards, I believe that we had moved that to, intergovernmental, and that was merged. So this can be taken out of this committee. Is that right, Mr. Myers?
That's correct.
Okay. So will you make a motion to remove? Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? We will remove that. And then the final one, the curb replacement program that Ms. Gorton put in March of '05. We'll give you an update, find out where we're on that, and then we'll bring it back towards the committee. With that, is there any other issues that the committee would like to address at this point? And if there's anything in here that you would like to have addressed and put on the next committee or in the follow-up, please come to me or come to my aide or Mr. Schoniger, and we'll try to get the agenda for the next committee. At this point, I wish I had done it at the beginning, but I did not do it. But I don't want to be remiss without saying hello to our new committee members. Ms. Lawless. And Ms. Feigl, welcome aboard. This is actually your first meeting here, so this will be one of many meetings that you'll be attending, so enjoy. With that, I'll accept a motion to adjourn. We are adjourned. Thank you.